There ain't got no way, I'm gonna make it without my Lord. No, ain't got no way, I'm gonna make it without my Lord. No, ain't got no way, I'm gonna make it without my Lord. No.
Hey, and welcome to this episode of Breaking Out of Depression. We thank you so much for joining us and for your continued support and your commitment to this program as we continue to build this community, as we seek to create the opportunity for people to be edified, people to be encouraged, people to be inspired, and given the information and the knowledge that they need to overcome many kinds of depression, anxiety, panic attacks, burnout, you name it. And so we're really thankful unto God for giving us this opportunity and this platform whereby we can come together and we can bring on the professionals, our guests, our special guests, but not only information and education and knowledge, but also the experience. Many of them have gone through some real trying and testing times, and our guests on this episode of Breaking Out of Depression is no exception. His story is quite unusual. His name is John Graham. And due to time constraints, we had to do a pre recorded video, which we're going to start quite soon after the introduction because we want you to get as much of the content as possible for those who are logged on now and those who are listening via the LBW app. So, before we continue any further, let's give God thanks for the opportunity that we have before us as we continue to build this community together. Let's pray. Heavenly Father and merciful God, indeed it is a privilege and an honor to come to you in the name of your Son Jesus Christ, the author and finisher of our faith. We are grateful, dear God, for the life that you have given unto us and the many blessings you have bestowed upon us, both in the spirit and in the natural. As we continue to provide the opportunity for people to receive information and knowledge and inspiration of how they can overcome depression and break out of it, we pray, dear God, that you continue to give us the strength, the commitment, the discipline, the attitude, and the desire to continue to build and grow and develop this community. We pray for all those who are supporting us across this nation here in the Twin Island Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, throughout the Caribbean and around the world, for those who have been sending up prayers to you on our behalf and are supporting us in many different ways. We pray for our producer and his family and those who are working in the background to ensure that this is a success at this time. Continue to give them strength, courage, and determination to do that which is right and pleasing in your sight. So we thank you for this opportunity and we pray, dear God, that this episode would make a huge difference in the lives of so many, that it would certainly edify and help to bring that kind of knowledge and information and content that would be very valuable to them, their family, loved ones, and friends, especially as in these times we need to consolidate and hold each other's hands and lead us into places where we can have the light, where we can see, and certainly with the help of your Holy Spirit to lead us into paths of righteousness for your name's sake. So we give you thanks in no other name but the living Christ. Amen. Great. So here we are again at this juncture, and we are excited to bring to you this particular episode of Breaking Out of Depression. So let me do my house cleaning at this time as is required. We are continuing to build that resource directory of personnel who have come on this program, including our guest that you're going to hear and see shortly, John Graham. And of course, it's going to be free for you to get the information that you can reach out to them if you have a challenge, a situation with your family, your friends, your loved ones, yourself, your co-worker, your brother or sister in the Lord. It does not matter who it is. We are here for everyone and to support everyone. Please send your requests via email to lovebitsa@gmail.com. That's lovebitsa@gmail.com, or WhatsApp at 1-869-664-4365. 1-869-664-4365. Remember, you can download our app for your Android device. Do that and be able to follow us as we give you the programs: Iron Sharpened Iron, Action Friday, Brooklyn Bible Study, Level Up Your Marriage, Bible Chat at High Noon, monthly discussions for men live on LBW Radio every first Monday of the month with Brother Paul Blake, our morning devotions, and of course, seeking to understand the history of the churches of Christ around the world with Brother Roy Granell. The theme for the year: Let God Do More for all of 2024. Scripture for the year: Isaiah 43:18 to 19, King James Version. Behold, I will do a new thing. Now it shall spring forth. Shall ye not know it? I will even make a way in the wilderness and rivers in the desert. The thought for the week, we'll have that later on in the program. Our theme: Breaking Out of Depression, the truth about chronic anxiety with John Graham. And this individual have experienced chronic anxiety and panic attacks almost every day of his life for a certain period of time. But just don't take my word for it. Very shortly, we'll give you the opportunity to hear him live and his struggles, the things that he had to go through, how he overcame, and now he's helping so many people to overcome in a similar manner. God bless him. And yes, good evening to the panel. Our special supporter and our friend Gracie Vincent is in the house. Welcome to you, my dear sister. Now, we're going to show you this pre-recorded video and we're going to obviously try to get it in. That is why I'm going to play it early. But in addition to that, please put your comments and your questions in the comment section, because after it's finished, it's about an hour or so, we will have enough time to look at what he was saying and to answer any questions to the best of my ability, and of course to enjoy your comments as you continue to support and look on at this program in this community as we continue to build. So without further ado, let me see if I can set up here to share the video with regards to breaking out of depression, the truth about chronic. Hold on. There you go. The studios of Breaking Out of Depression. Our episode today is entitled The Truth About Chronic Anxiety with John Graham. So, let me tell you a bit about John Graham. John Graham is a three-time USA memory champion. He's also Grandmaster of Memory, an entrepreneur, and mentors high performers, including a world record holder. He's a world class mind and innovator, but his dark secret is that he had to overcome daily panic attacks and chronic anxiety. Sounds very interesting and intriguing indeed. But let us not speculate. Without further ado, let's introduce our special guest on this episode of Breaking Out of Depression, John Graham. John, welcome.
Thank you, Andy. I'm excited to share the truth about my journey and help as many people as I can.
Looking forward to it. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us. We appreciate what you're going to do and we appreciate you. So, without further ado, John, tell us, in your own words, what is your most potent and detailed definition of the term anxiety from your perspective?
That's a really interesting question. The mainstream is a fixation on a future, a dread of the future, has physiological effects in the body. But my definition of anxiety is it's an emotional root issue. People think it's mental, right? The anxiety of the mind, where we ruminate and fixate and dread, that's a side effect of the real root issue.
Wow.
Right. So anxiety to me is a deeper emotional, trapped emotional issue that we haven't dealt with, unresolved emotion in our body.
Mm-hmm.
That's what causes us to think forward and worry. But the anxiety, the fixation of the mind isn't really the root, isn't really, it's a symptom of what's going on. So
Okay.
it's a little bit deeper than what most people think it is.
Yeah, I love that. So, John, how do we get folks to understand that they need to find a way to resolve that which is unresolved? And how would you best advise them to begin that process?
Yeah, for me, it all changed when I realized what the real root was. Like I said, we all have massive amounts of trapped emotions in our nervous system, in our body. These are moments of the past. These are emotions that we couldn't handle. They were so intense, or we were embarrassed, or scared, or sad, whatever, that we pushed them away. We didn't handle them effectively, and they stored in our body. So every single moment of our lives that we didn't fully process that emotion, it's still inside of us. So over time, it builds and builds and builds and causes all of these internal issues, right? And so just realizing, hey, if I have anxiety or depression, I have a massive amount of resistance of trapped emotion in my body. That's really what's causing all of this. And so when I realized that, I said, okay, I want this stuff out. I want it processed out. Because what happens is when you process this emotion fully, it releases for good. So you can imagine, I'm like, I want to process this, release it like steam, like boulders, get it out of me so that I can feel normal, so I can feel present, so I can have peace and clarity. And when I realized, again, trapped emotions, you can release them for good, then that changed the game for me. Now I completely switched gears and had to find a way to do that.
Yeah. So, John, tell us, in that moment when that sense of realization came to you, what was the emotion like flowing in your body? Could you identify where you felt it? And what was the experience that led to that moment where you recognize, wow, like the epiphany moment, I can do this? What was that moment like for you? Can you recall with us?
Oh, yeah. I had a really life-changing year in 2022.
Mm-hmm.
My grandfather, he was 90 years old. He committed suicide.
Wow.
And I was just, it was so devastating because we had no clue.
Yeah.
It was so out of the blue. He left no note. We didn't know why. And the normal reaction when someone dies is we get very sad, right?
Yes. Yes.
I was enraged. I was so angry at him for what he did to our family. This was a judgment of mine, of course, at the time. So angry at what he did, what he left. Everyone was devastated, just a lot of rage inside of me. And so I was like that for probably 2 months, just so mad at him, just boiling. Blood was boiling. And finally, one day, a friend asked me, do you still love him?
Uh-huh.
And I didn't want to answer that question because I was so enraged, but I knew I did.
Yeah.
So here's the moment. That night, after 2 months of rage boiling in my blood, I laid my head on the pillow and I spoke to my grandfather. I said, Grandpa, I don't agree with what you did. I don't think I ever will, but I love you.
Yes.
And I meant it. And in
Yes.
that moment, an elephant of rage floated off my body. It was gone. And
Yeah.
it was so shocking. I was like, what just happened? And so I actually tried to get angry again because I said, okay, something really strange just happened, profound. And I tried to get angry. I looked at all the memories that were once caused a sizzle.
Yeah.
I couldn't get angry. I couldn't get angry. And it was gone. It was lifted out of me. And that was a moment I said, there's something here. I need to learn how to do that more. Because it wasn't just forgiveness. I mean, it was forgiveness, but it was more than that. I realized why I was so stuck. Because we get attached to things and we hold this emotion in us. We don't even realize how and why. And so that led me on a journey of how do I do that more? How do I get more out of me? Because I knew it was so profound.
Wow. That is an amazing experience. And thank you for sharing with us, John. We appreciate you for that. You have helped many people, I'm sure, with regards to dealing with chronic anxiety. Could you explain to us, and maybe this is going to be a bit scientific, what's the difference between chronic anxiety and a normal day anxiety? Because I've read some studies where they told us, John, that there is a level of anxiety that's good based on your ability to manage it. and to then channel that energy in a positive direction. What's the difference between that and something that is so chronic, like what you experienced with your granddad, that it made you angry and the effects of it was negative on your body, on your psychology, and all the things that you wanted to do? It was like a barrier, a hindrance to you being the kind of individual you wanted to be. What's the difference? What's the dichotomy between the two?
This is incredibly important. So daily anxiety, normal emotion of anxiety. We've all taken tests in our lives that we get nervous for. We get some butterflies in our stomach or about to give a speech, right? Go even like a podcast, you feel a little nervous. That's
Right, right.
normal
Uh-huh.
anxiety. That's completely normal that you will feel that for the rest of your life to some extent, right?
Right.
But then there's chronic. What I was experiencing and what many people experience is waking up out of bed in the morning with a heaviness to your body, with
Wow.
a dread to the day, not like thinking of your to-do list, thinking of all the stuff you have to do and just spiraling in your head. I don't want to do this. Oh my gosh, I hope this doesn't happen. So not only is it heavy in the body, in the stomach, in the heart, tightness in the chest, it leads to tension in your body where you're tight. You have tension headaches. It leads to heart arrhythmias where your heart's skipping a beat. It
Yeah.
leads to hyperventilation sometimes or just brain fog. So
Yeah.
this is a really intense physiological reaction where our hormones, our chemicals just go berserk because of all the stress, all the trapped emotion we're holding in. It
Mm-hmm.
activates, and it almost is just surreal because it just paralyzes you. It
Right.
causes you to shut down. It causes you to feel mentally drained. So you can imagine how this would impact someone day to day. When it really is heavy, it just paralyzed me. I just couldn't function. I couldn't work. I couldn't think well, and it was just very debilitating.
Wow. Amazing. So you found a system that you use, and you say that it is unconventional in terms of how you administer this system that helps people to overcome chronic anxiety. Could you describe it for us in detail, the discovery, and how it works effectively and efficiently to help the people that you now serve?
Yeah. So we first have to understand that most conventional methods try to treat the mind,
Right.
right? Because it's labeled mental health, which
Yes.
that's a side effect of
Um,
anxiety or depression is we're fixated on our past in our minds, and anxiety is we're fixated on our future and worrying ahead, right?
right.
But why is that? It's because of all of this emotion inside of us that is unresolved. So I was trying the Xanax and the medication route, which I clearly didn't work for me. I didn't want to go that route. There's meditations that try to get you to calm down, which is a good thing to do, but it completely bypasses that
Mhm.
emotion. So
Yeah.
you have to understand this mental approach makes sense. It's logical, but it isn't the real root. It won't impact the real reality of it. So what I do is very intentional. We got to get out of our minds. We got to get into our bodies to release these trapped emotions. So if someone's willing, and that's the number one key, Andy, is I can't convince everyone to do this because some people like to manage and maintain their anxiety. They like to take the medications and just like cope with it, and that's okay. But if you want to get rid of it for good, you have to go in and face these emotions, right?
Yes.
It can be very uncomfortable, but it's going to be more uncomfortable if you stuff it in. So the method is a really simple 3-step process.
Hmm.
So the first step is to regulate your nervous system, because if you have anxiety, you're not regulated. Your nervous system is tense. It is
Yeah.
always turned on. Your mind is always turned on. And so we have to learn how to deeply release all of the tensions in our body, release control of the mind, so that our nervous system can function properly. And when this happens, not only does your tension go away, but these emotions can start releasing much easier. You can process. And your body obviously functions better. You're not drained at the end of the day. This is the most profound shift. Is I teach people a method to lay flat. It's super easy. Lay flat, release all control of your body, release control of your breath, and just completely release so you can regulate. Okay. The second thing is what I call the unhooking method.
Mm-hmm.
So when you are bothered during the day, like you're frustrated, you're angry, you're in fear, and by the way, it doesn't matter what emotion you're feeling. If you're feeling a negative emotion, it's underneath that anxiety.
Yeah.
So I shared the rage with my grandfather. That
Yeah.
was causing anxiety, believe it or not, all that trapped energy. So no matter what negative emotion you are feeling, we have to learn how to unhook and release it so it can process out. What most people do, Andy, when they're feeling a negative emotion, like imagine you're feeling really frustrated. So what do most people do? They go blow off some steam. They go for a walk. They listen to a podcast. They do the dishes. They vent. If you do those things and no judgment, you're bypassing that energy, meaning you're not facing it so that it can release.
Okay.
And we're
Okay.
conditioned to do that. So we
Yeah.
have to learn how to relax and allow that emotion to happen so it can release for good and release out. And then the third part, talking about my grandfather, right? I call this method catalyst integration. This is
Mm.
what I learned from what I did with my grandfather. It's beyond, it's related to forgiveness.
Yeah.
But it's how do we release that? How on your own can you release that attachment so that emotion can release? And one thing I'll share, Andy, about forgiveness that I think a lot of people misunderstand, I did anyway. I thought forgiveness was about right and wrong. Like,
Uh-huh.
oh, he did something wrong. He did something bad. I'm
Mhm.
right here. So we hold
Yeah.
on to them. Forgiveness, and this is my opinion,
Right.
forgiveness has nothing to do with right or wrong. It has nothing to do with what the other person did or didn't do.
Mhm.
Forgiveness is about forgiving our judgment of what happened so we
Wow.
can open up our perspective.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so those three methods, fully regulating, releasing emotion as they're happening during the day, and then releasing these big boulders is how I free people from panic and chronic anxiety for good.
Right. Wonderful. Thank you so much. I've done some studies myself, John, and I have looked at something that I'm sure you probably would be quite familiar with, and it is called the vagus nerve or the vagus nervous system, and that has tremendous amounts of neurotransmitters. Now, I don't want people to think, oh my goodness, they're going to go scientific now, because I know we can simplify it for them to understand, because these are parts of the body that help us to understand what is happening with the body when we get these signs and these symptoms and they come along to us. So I'm going to read something here. It says the vagus nerve, also known as the 10th cranial nerve or cranial nerve, X, plays a crucial role in your body's automatic nervous system. And if you break it down, the vagus nerve originates in the medulla oblongata, which is the part of the brain connected to the spinal cord. I'm going to leave it there because I said I don't want people to be confused. How is it that we find a way to understand through what you're doing the importance of incorporating how this particular nerve in our body works and affects us in times of depression and anxiety? Just as how you can simplify it for us, John.
Yeah, there's the vagus nerve runs down, and like you said, it basically runs the show when it comes to regulation, being fully regulated. So the vagus nerve is where everyone's fixated on calming it down so it can relax the body and regulate your nervous system. So it's related to the first thing I said, right? Of relaxing our body, releasing the tension, and regulating our nervous system. Because when the vagus nerve is regulated and activated, it calms us down, right? To allow us to handle the voltage of the day, the pressure of the day. So if someone is in depression, in anxiety, their vagus nerve is like, they are tense and they're not balanced, right?
Wow.
So that's what I help people do, is releasing that tension so the vagus nerve can properly function. Now, the thing I'll caution people, and I got in this trap too, is there's a lot of hacks out there to calm
Yeah.
your vagus nerve. So like humming soothes it. So people think, oh, if I hum more, my anxiety will go away, right? It's calming you down, of course. But if you don't know how to handle the
Hmm.
frustrations of the day and you bypass them, right? You scroll on your phone, you go for a walk, you go for a drink after work, then the vagus nerve, it's not going to have any effect in your chronic anxiety because you're not learning how to handle the voltage as well. So that's
Wow.
why I fell in this trap of like, oh, I'm just going to hum all day. I'm going to gurgle all day to calm this down, but it's more to it. So the vagus nerve is incredibly important to regulate the body, but we have to know how to handle the emotions too when they come up, because they will come up,
Yeah.
and you have to know how to process that.
Yeah. Ah, wonderful. Thank you for clearing that up. Okay, so John, you have an amazing history as a three-time USA memory champion. I'm just gonna release things a little bit and have you tell us about that experience and how challenging it was for you because it was a time when you were still dealing with certain levels of anxiety. Tell us a bit about that three-time USA memory champion experience.
Yeah, if you're watching the video, you can see one of my trophies. It's like a shape
Yes.
of a seahorse, like the hippocampus of the brain. But yeah, 10 years ago, 2014, I read a book called Moonwalking with Einstein: The Art and Science of Remembering Everything.
Right.
At that point, I was like, people assume I have a naturally good memory or I'm a savant or photographic memory. None of that. Like, I learned through technique, through like imagination, association, visual techniques, how to store massive amounts of information in my mind and where to find it so I can recall it quickly, right? So it's just all technique, 100%. And I read that book. I said, this is insane that people can do this type of stuff. Like, I'm talking like memorizing a deck of shuffled cards, all 52 cards in order within seconds or minutes,
Wow.
you know? So that's the first thing I learned. I learned how to do that in 6 minutes. It took me a week and I was just astonished. So I just kept going, and I competed at my first world championship later that year, in China. Completely bombed, by the way. Like, it took some time, but learning that anyone can memorize insane amounts of information, hundreds of digits in minutes, or like decks of cards or words or names, I was hooked, and I kept going. I think it did take me about 3.5, 4 years to win my first championship, and then the rest is history there.
History as I said. Yeah. Wonderful. You had an experience with Mike Tyson.
Yeah. This is before I won my first championship. I applied for a TV show called Superhuman, which of course features people with all kinds of different mental and physical abilities. And I got on the show like by the skin of my teeth. They're like, okay, well, we'll try you out, see if you can do it. And Mike Tyson was a judge on this show.
Wow.
Christina Milian was another. Cal Penn was the host. And so I went on the show and they had me memorize. There were 20 runners, like joggers. These were high school kids that like ran out on stage. I memorized their first name on their runner's bib, and then it was a 5-digit number, and then the color of their bib.
Okay.
So I memorized all this information, right? And then I recited it back, and it was insane. I succeeded. You can find that on YouTube. But yeah, Mike Tyson was cheering me on.
Okay. Okay. Great. Wonderful. Thanks for sharing, John. So let's look at the people that you work with a- and the people that you help, obviously. What are some of the major confessions that you get from these people as challenges that they face? And I don't know if there's a pattern or if there's differences in terms of what they tell you. Sometimes we have 15 people and it's the same thing. Sometimes we have 10 people and it's something different. But what have you observed with the people that you help in terms of their confessions, their challenges that they come to you with? Is it a pattern or is there a varying different or differences between what they experience and how you can help them to overcome those experiences?
Yeah, everyone has what they would label as mental blocks or subconscious blocks. They feel stuck. Like they keep repeating a pattern out of life. They keep having the same issues financially or with their spouse or with their family, right? That's a manifestation of these suppressed energies, right? So most people with anxiety, chronic anxiety, feel overwhelmed. You know, that feeling where there's so much to do, your brain starts shutting down, you can't think what to do first, right? Your to-do list is overflowing.
Yeah.
That's an emotional issue as well. Lots of emotions are coming up that people aren't handling. And so
Okay.
what people do with anxiety and depression is they jump up into their head to try to survive, to try to figure things out. So we're always trying to figure things out mentally, cognitively, planning, thinking ahead, worrying, right? And so that keeps them stuck repeating the same pattern. So
Okay.
most of these people are stuck in the same life cycles over and over, and they don't know how to advance and expand beyond that to break free.
Wow. Okay, so John, I'm just gonna play a video here. I'm not sure if I'm gonna let it run the full length, but I want your commentary on it because I think it's extremely important as part of the value that we are sharing.
And that nervous system has to be fully regulated for you to be able to handle the day. And by handle it, I mean like process the emotions as they're going through instead of burying everything and feeling like you're a tense ball of fire.
Right.
So when I learned that, I was like, I literally laid in bed or couch bed, laid down flat for 30 minutes a day to just let go of all this tension, to activate my parasympathetic nervous system, to make sure I was fully regulated so that I could handle stress. Stress meaning all this suppressed emotion that's in my cells and my nervous system.
Yeah, that's interesting. I've often thought that the biggest mistake adults do is they get rid of nap time. I mean, one of my fondest memories of elementary school is every day they would have this time and they would say, roll out your mats and just lay there, you know? And I don't recall whether I went to sleep or not, but at the end of the day, there was always this pause period time to just chill, you know?
Yeah.
And it's just something that you got to basically study yoga as an adult or whatever to learn it again. But it is powerful.
I think people know this too. They know they should relax and nap, but they don't. You know, I was very wound up in my mind all the time. I always felt like I had to be productive. I got to be doing something. Even if I'm sitting here watching a movie, I'm thinking in my head, planning the next day or planning my next business move or prepare, like going through flashcards from my memory palace or something. You know, like I'm doing something. And that's very harmful to our nervous system. And I'm sure people who have anxiety who are listening to this feel drained. You feel really tense in your neck or your forehead or like your chest. It's because of this. You know, and I was the same way. We know we should relax. We know we shouldn't eat junk food, but we still do these things. So why, right?
Right. Well, do you know why? Is there any parts of the puzzle?
Yeah, I mean, it's to pacify all the energy we can't handle. Right? The energy meaning this suppressed emotion that's in your body.
Wow. So, John, two things that I want you to focus on: the parasympathetic nervous system. Tell folks about that, how important it is to understand how that works, what affects it. And the last part where you said we sometimes try to do things like eating the junk food and all the bad habits that we develop to suppress that nervous energy that we are supposed to release. Wow, that's amazing. But first, the parasympathetic nervous system. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, very simply, we have a sympathetic nervous system response, which means it's switched on. Think of a light switch. That's tense. We're always on. We're always doing, always going, always moving,
Right.
always thinking. Parasympathetic is off or rejuvenate, recover,
Okay.
which is beyond like just sleeping. That's the vagus nerve. When the vagus nerve is soothed and activated, we're in the parasympathetic relaxed, regulated state. So
Okay.
that's all it means is we have to learn how to relax and let go to activate that parasympathetic response so we can recover. Because I'm sure even people think, oh, does that mean just sleep and take a nap? No, you can be incredibly tense and take a nap and you still feel drained when you wake up, right? We have to relax and release. So that's what the parasympathetic, it's the vagus, it's the regulating your nervous system, which we need. And then the energy, yeah, I'll say this very boldly and confidently, that every addiction, the root of every addiction is emotional suppression. unprocessed emotions. If you're addicted to work, if you're addicted to food, alcohol, whatever, it's because there's an energy, an uncomfortable energy that's coming up, that we use something else to fill that void, to pacify that energy because it's so uncomfortable, right? So think of like you get home and there's an edge, you're stressed, so you grab a drink, then you go, relax, right? Whatever it is that people use to avoid that energy is a coping. And so what I teach is realize, and no judgment, we all have some type of like thing that we use to push that edge back down. But if you realize that edge can be felt and released, that stuff slowly, surely gets released, and you don't have all these chronic issues. You don't have a strong edge. You don't have a massive amount of stress inside of you. So that was the switch for me, is, wow, if I feel that urge, that intense urge to grab my phone real quick, to like, calm down or go for a walk or exercise or whatever, before I do those things, why don't I just sit and be in that energy, as uncomfortable as it is, and relax so that it can process and I can be free of it for good.
Yeah, I get it. Wow, thank you for sharing, John. Amazing. So, in terms of people who are involved in career work, like CEOs, guys who, and I shouldn't say guys, but people, because CEOs can be both male and female. They are involved in a high pressure situation at work, and it's very demanding. And it means then that they have to find a way to regulate themselves during the course of the day, whatever crises or challenges they have to deal with. But when they get home, John, it goes with them. And they can't seem to separate the two. How would you advise them to manage that situation, that when they leave work and they go home, that does not follow them and comes into the family scenario, but they can manage it?
That's key, is this stuff gets picked up by our friends and family and our closest loved ones. As they feel it,
Yeah.
our children go in the same conditioning and learn the same habits.
Uh-huh.
So a conscious individual who knows what I'm sharing with you, who finally realizes the truth and understands what's going on, you have to make a choice and say, okay, I'm committed, I'm devoted to dealing with my stuff that's coming up, because it's mine. It's not yours, Andy. It's not my grandfather's. It's not anyone else's. It's stuff I've stored.
Right.
No judgment. But for people like this, we have to know and have ways to release this stuff.
Uh-huh.
Because otherwise it piles on, like not only like boulders and rocks inside of our body, but like static in our minds, right? So we have to continually know how to regulate and release. So for the people who are coming on highly stressful work situations and lifestyles, we have to completely surrender and relax our bodies every day. I'm not talking take a nap and just lay there on the couch, because sometimes your mind can still churn. You have to learn a method to completely let go of all of the cells and tensions in your body, relax the mind, so that your nervous system can do this work, right? Your body can do this work on its own. It has a divine intelligence to it. There's a divine intelligence, as we all know, that's working. Why don't we let go to let God?
Yeah. Wonderful. Amazing. So we know that we need to find a way to dissolve all neural pathways, the conditioning that we have grown with, that we have grown up with, whether it has been influenced by our social connections or socioeconomic positions or epigenetics. How do we create a new neural pathway so that we dissolve the old and find something now that would take us to a place where we can feel so much better about ourselves?
Yeah. You have to have awareness of what the old neural pathway is.
Okay.
The bad habit.
Right.
That happens with clarity.
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden you wake up and you realize the real pattern you're stuck in. And maybe you're aware of it. the only way, here's the key, Andy.
Yeah.
A lot of people try to mentally create new neural pathways and habits, like force. That's control, that's conditioning, right? We're trying to battle conditioning with control, which doesn't work. Right?
Right.
It causes a lot of friction. So what I mean, if people are confused, by feeling this suppressed energy, that will inform us of what to do next. So by dealing with all of this massive energy inside of us that's suppressed, the clarity will come. It's like we've all had experiences in our life where we've had a cathartic moment, a cry, or punching a pillow, and then all of a sudden we come out of it, and a day later that day we realize what was happening. We understand the different perspective, right? And we make a different choice. So from that clarity, we can make a different choice, right? Here's the old neural pathway, and here's the new one we want to make. We can't make a new one without understanding what's going on. Okay, so now I need to make this new choice. So now that comes devotion. This old neural pathway is going to be very, very, very strong. We've done it thousands of times unconsciously. So if we're conscious and present, even if we're uncomfortable, if we're present in the moment, we can make that choice again and again and again. And I can tell you, if you handle the voltage inside of you, Andy, and process that out, taking this new path is so much easier and much more clearer to do than in the old way.
Wow. Yeah. Makes sense. Thank you for sharing, John. So, in terms of that practical reality of people having panic attacks and anxiety, just stressing them out day to day, how debilitating can that be? I mean, we know that there are people who are even afraid to go to work. They're afraid to bounce their start and drive their cars. They're afraid to socialize because they don't know when this monster is gonna, rear its ugly head. How do we, from your perspective, get people to realize that we don't have to fear it, but rather, as you would have alluded to, face it head on?
Yeah. Well, I speak from experience because I had this happen to me, Andy.
Yeah.
I was having daily panic attacks, multiple.
Right.
And one example I'll give is I was driving over a bridge on a road nearby me to go to a restaurant,
Uh-huh.
and I had a panic attack.
Wow.
Like as I was driving it, my arm tightened up. I thought, it felt like a heart attack. And just a wave of fear and doom and just overtook me, a surge, right? And all of a sudden, oh crap, what's happening? Like, am I going to die? What's wrong with me? All the, spiral. Every time I went over that bridge again, I had another panic attack because what that happens is that neural pathway strengthens. It remembers this bridge. I was unsafe. I had a panic attack, and then another one happens.
Yeah.
So same thing when I was in my kitchen. Every time I sat down in the same chair in my kitchen, I would have a panic attack.
Wow.
And so that's why people stay away from grocery stores or we don't go out, is because we're afraid if we do it again, another one will happen.
Yeah.
Right? But here's the truth. The bridge is not causing your panic attack. The chair or the grocery store or the situation is not causing the panic attack. Right? It's triggering, it's poking something inside of you that's bringing up an uncomfortable emotion, right? To be dealt with, to be released for good, right? God would never punish us for these things. God is actually helping us to release this stuff. It's us that's like not wanting to deal with it, right? I realize that.
Yeah.
Okay, I need to get comfortable with the uncomfortable. And these are highly uncomfortable. So one, yes. I know it's just a panic attack. I know I'm not going to die. My heart's been checked. If anyone's going through panic attacks, go to the doctor, make sure nothing's wrong with you. If they can't find anything wrong with you, it's panic. It's anxiety. And so now we can face it. So instead of retreating from, social situations or bridges or grocery stores, right? We go in knowing something uncomfortable might happen, but we can handle that relax into that so that it can release forever. And if you do that, that neural pathway will form and this old one will dissolve, because you will basically teach yourself that you are safe, that you are okay. And that's how I started dissolving all of my panic neural pathways, is because I said, okay, I'm going to face it as uncomfortable as I can. And I built that tolerance to relax and release it for good.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you for sharing. So, John, I'm just going to share something with you, and I want it to be a bit of a surprise. I wonder if I can do that. Let me see. Oh,
Sure.
yes. Okay, so do some color commentary. Tell us about this. Here we go.
Yeah. That's me sitting in a chair on a Russian TV show called Incredible People. I actually won a challenge and got invited back to the show's finale. So I finished 4th place on the show. It's like America's Got Talent, but
Yeah,
for really brainy, incredible people. So yeah, that was me
right.
enjoying Russia.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing. So, John, in terms of the future, where do you see yourself going with the project that you're currently working with? Are there any other ways that you're going to develop and improve on what you're currently doing? Um, Broadening the scope of your ability to help people and so on? Are there any more things that you're going to search for?
I have a program right now where I help people with this very issue, like exclusively. I
Yeah,
am always, always looking to expand and grow. And so I practice what I preach every
yeah,
day and simplify it as much as I can. So the main thing, my mission right now, Andy, is to I wouldn't say wake up people, but spread the message and get people to realize that these addictions, that these anxieties, depressions are an emotional issue, that they themselves can learn how to handle that. And just by people knowing that can empower them to actually look in a different direction and face the challenges, instead of like just medicating or not knowing what to do or just going to therapy. And that's okay, because we're lost in like the mainstream narrative. So the main thing I want to do is just get the message out that the old way, the mental strategies and treatments out there aren't going to go the full root depth of what you need if you want to resolve it for good. So my mission is getting that word out there, but also and spreading my message on wonderful podcasts like yourself, Andy. I appreciate what you're doing a lot. But
thank you.
this is also, I'll say this too, is not everyone's going to resonate with this, because some people are okay maintaining it because it's not as bad as they think, or they're okay with whatever. Or just, I'm here to educate the people who want to empower themselves to go within and face these things, to help them. Because here's the thing, this is how you expand. This is how everyone expands to their fullest potential, their God-given abilities, is they face and incorporate every part of them, not just the good parts and the good moments and the things they want, but these, people call them dark and negative. They're not dark and negative. These are parts of us, experiences that we haven't fully learned to process, that God gave us for a reason. And so I'm here to say, this isn't bad, this isn't negative, this is the experience of being human. Let's learn from these and expand, and let's get to the root of it.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for sharing, John. I look at the things that we see happening in the world today, John, and it's amazing that you look at the media, whether it's social or the news media, and there's a barrage of negative stuff being pelted at people all the time. It's war, it's crime, it's the economy, people on trial for crimes, and you kind of wonder, okay, what's the good in all this? Can we see a silver lining somehow? The thing about it is, and I guess where I'm going with this is, how do we get people to really focus on the inner being and find that peace, even with God Himself, rather than being a victim of all this negative social interaction. Just do we turn the switch off? Do we meditate sometimes? Do we just go for a walk in the park? Do we read books that would help us to understand ourselves better? Do we spend more time in prayer? Do we, you know, a combination of things? But what is the key to us being able to shut out all that negative hype that's coming through these different mediums and really focus on developing that inner being that is able to have peace, so to speak?
Yeah, this is a really powerful question because we all know to some extent that we shouldn't watch the news, but it's like so tempting, right? We get an energy from it, a dopamine hit.
Yeah.
That dopamine, all that means is like we get a little hit of adrenaline. It's kind of the same thing like when we scroll on our phones or we listen to a good podcast. We're distracting ourselves from ourselves.
Wow.
But if we go within and be with ourselves, we realize there's a lot of parts of us that need to be seen and felt to be experienced within, right? So here's another thing I'll say to this, Andy, is the media or anger or all the stuff out there can be used for good. And what I mean by that is if something pokes you emotionally, if you watch someone on the news, a politician, for example, and they anger you, that is showing you, that's a mirror, that's showing you there's something inside of me that's not okay. Also, it means I'm judging that person.
Yeah.
But it's not about right or wrong, remember.
Yeah.
It's about
Yeah.
judgment. And so
Yeah.
what that reveals is that there is a similar aspect of me that has that same trait.
Mm.
So for example, if I'm really ticked off that someone is lying, a politician, right? It means there's a part of me that's not truthful.
Ah.
Ooh,
Wow.
that's profound because that shows that you have inner work to do. And that's what I did. One of the things I learned from my grandfather is I really want to write a list of and keep noticing everyone that bothers me because I'm not a victim to them. I'm going to use that as an opportunity to grow and realize that I'm mad at this person. I don't like this person because of similar traits that I hold, that I harbor inside. Maybe I'm not honest. Maybe I lie. Maybe I manipulate too. And these are all indicating ways that I can deal with myself and expand. So that's the lens that I see the world in now is I don't see the world as good and bad, right or wrong, all this stuff. I mean, naturally my mind might see that, but I try to step back and say, what can I use this to better myself with, to expand so that I release judgment, I expand my heart, my perception so that I can operate from a standard of unconditional love.
Wow. Wonderful. So, John, are you currently involved in any form of mentoring? And when I say mentoring, there are some people that come on the program or my other podcasts, and they would speak about a group of persons, or maybe just one or two, that they would see, and they would see a certain level of potential in these people, and they would say, "Hey, come spend time with me." And you would show them things about what you do, your expertise and your experiences, because you kind of want that to continue, even if it's to the next generation. But it is something that you do as a program to sort of propel the stuff that you're doing so that other people could develop it as well. And as I said before, have a level of continuity. Are you currently involved in any program like that? Whether it's a group of people or a young man, a young woman, or somebody that you see that kind of potential. You're saying, you know what? I see the future through these people or this individual. Let me invest some of what I know in them.
Yeah, I'm always seeking to be mentored by other people in different realms of my life. So I currently am in a program, a container. My mentor currently is Philip Attar and his wife Amanda Lee Attar. You can look them up, and they
Yeah.
teach a living immersion method, which is in advanced practice. Once you go beyond anxiety and overwhelm and all these mental issues, you can expand your consciousness.
Yeah.
It's sort of, he teaches a let go, let God philosophy where you can stay in the energies of everything right now in this moment and operate utilizing God to flow through you. You're a vessel, and if you're present, you can be very powerful in the present moment and let God speak through you and act through you and change the world through you without your mind getting in the way and you trying to do it for me. Right? So that's the expansion I'm in, is how do I let go of myself to be a greater vessel of creativity, of love, and expand my message, my truth, so that I can impact more people through not just my mind of what I think, but an expansive divine operating system.
Wonderful. I love it. Thank you for sharing. How did you reach the conclusion that the title released would be the one that would be most appropriate for what you had discovered?
Yeah, that's the name of my program.
Yes.
Release is because it's the opposite of what we're doing.
Yeah.
What we're doing is we're holding suppressed emotions, we're holding on to conditioning.
Yeah.
And so the only way to let this stuff go is to release it, to release tension, to release control of it, to allow it to happen. And so it's a complete switch of what we're taught, is to release. It's like, people hear all the time, let go, but they don't know how to do that. And that was me. I was like, what do you mean let go? I don't understand because we don't know what we're holding on to.
Yeah.
So I teach how to find this stuff and how to release it.
Okay. Wonderful. So now we're going to have just a short break for about 1 minute and 9 seconds. I'm going to play a video of one of our supporters. She's Phoebe Trotman, and she's been on this program twice. She's also the author of Never Quit on a Bad Day, and she has sent me the second part of that. It's a series, and it speaks so much about getting out of a place of overwhelm to a place of empowerment. And this is just Phoebe endorsing our program. So we're just going to take a quick break, John, for about 1 minute and 9 seconds, and we will be right back after this.
Hi friends, Phoebe Trotman here. I wanted to just thank Andy Charles and the team for what they're doing with their broadcast. One of the things that stood out to me is that they truly care. They are there every single Tuesday at 6:30 p.m. Atlantic Standard Time, sharing what they have gone through, their experiences. They have guests who have gone through real challenges, and those guests are sharing what they've done to push through those challenges. But one of the things the reason I want to encourage you to tune in is because it helps you realize you're not alone. There is a community of people who care. There are people out there who've gone through challenges, and they're sharing what they did to push through. And so it's a show of hope. It's a show of encouragement. It's also a show where you can learn. You can learn a tip or two to help you along your journey. So I encourage you, again, tune in every single Tuesday at 6:30 p.m. Atlantic Standard Time. They have a great lineup of guests. They themselves, they share their experiences, and I know it will help you through your journey. So I wanted to wish you continued success, good health, and many blessings in 2024 and beyond.
So we thank Phoebe for her endorsement as we continue to build this community, John. And you're now part of that community because we will have your information available for many so that they can even reach out to you in their private time. As we look to the future and as we come into the end of this broadcast, this episode, what are some of the things that you recognize in the world that, for me personally, I think that people should find a way to accept each other without criticism. That is my singular kind of pet peeve. Everybody's opinion is important. And sometimes people just stress over what somebody else is saying and why should he say that and why. I don't question it. I simply look at it from their perspective, their lens, why they're seeing it this way. Why are they, there must be some sort of reasoning in their minds, or maybe it's an emotion that they need to express or get out. But sometimes we feel that because we are right about something, we are righteous. And that's wrong. So, John, at the end of the day, if you had to say something about what is happening in the world, what advice would you give to people? Let's imagine you have a megaphone and you could speak to almost 8 billion people, and you can give them a guideline that they can use to remember so that they can deal with the overwhelm and just relax and let people be people. What would you say to them, John?
Yeah, what you're sharing is very relevant to what I teach too. If you look at the world and you start noticing everything that bothers you,
Yeah.
all the judgments you have, all the criticisms you have in others, the truth is, and this is a very hard truth for people to understand, it means you have that inside of you, that
Yeah.
quality or similar, maybe not the direct. But when people, that's why Jesus, and not to be religious, but said, we have to love our neighbor as if ourselves, because our neighbor is indicating what we store in ourselves. If we're mad at our neighbor, we're mad at ourselves, a part of ourselves.
Yeah.
And so if we can look at the lens of what am I criticizing, what am I judging, what am I hating, what am I loving, this is parts of me that I'm also judging and criticizing and loving, and whoa. So I suggest everyone to make peace with every single thing that bothers them, because that will heal parts of you, and it will heal your judgment and open up your heart and your mind to different perspectives, right? The divine perspective. How does the divine look at all of us and love all of us? How is that possible? Well, it starts with you actively participating and looking at other people as if they are yourself.
I love that perspective. I love that. Thank you so much. Are there any publications in the making for you, John? Do you intend to write memoirs or books with regard to your experience and your expertise now that you have found a way to overcome?
This must be a sign, because I keep getting asked over and over, am I
Yeah,
writing a book?
yeah,
And I need to write a
yeah,
book. So this might be the final straw that pushes me I need to write a book, don't I? And share this with the world.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So you're gonna do it, right?
I need to. Yeah, I
Okay,
need to.
good, wonderful. What would you title that publication, anyways?
Gosh, I don't know. I mean, this podcast is like the synthesis of what I teach now, and what I'm most passionate about is the root of anxiety, the root of these
Yeah,
mental issues. It's emotional. And so,
yeah.
yeah, it would be everything that I talk about now, but in more depth, and probably share what I teach in my programs and the profound transformations that I've had in people,
Yeah.
with suicidal thoughts, depression, anxiety. It's all basically the same issue in different manifestations.
Yeah. John, one of the things that we get asked a lot is people are concerned about family heredity. And there are times when situations arise and they have to deal with this thing, and they remember, oh, um, granddaddy had this, or a brother or a sister or an aunt or somebody in the family, in the immediate family. And they go back and they realize that others as well. How do we help people from your perspective, your expertise, deal with that hereditary scenario where the anxiety is there, the depression is there, and they need to deal with it? But it was something that was in their lineage at some point in time, and they just have to deal with it.
Well, it was the same with me. My dad takes
Yeah,
medication for his anxiety,
yeah,
and I chose a different path because I was aware
yeah,
and made a conscious choice to go deeper.
yeah.
And I share that because I can inspire people that you can break the pattern in your family.
Okay,
Like, this is not trapped in your DNA forever. You can change the pattern
yeah.
by doing what I share, so that your kids and yourself doesn't suffer with the same issues. So
Hmm.
you can completely heal a generation and beyond if you are willing, strong enough, courageous to face this stuff, which I was, and help other people do.
Yeah. Do you incorporate things like dieting and sporting, in terms of getting involved in some sort of sporting activity as part of what you do in your system?
I don't like I think this is another thing where everyone knows they should exercise and eat well, but they don't, or
Yeah.
maybe they don't. I do,
Yeah.
and I have, I'll have a third daughter here soon to keep me active and spry. But what I say to this all the time, Andy, is again, the suppressed energy that we're avoiding.
Yeah.
When we feel that, we will get the clarity of, I'm not eating healthy. I need to do better to
Yeah.
make a different choice. We
Yeah.
don't do it mentally, we do it through that suppressed feeling. So if anyone's stuck and has a mental block or an emotional block, feel that energy. And I can help people do that so that they start eating healthier on their own choice without everyone telling them, you need to eat healthier, you need to eat healthier, and they still stay in the same pattern. The reason they're in the same pattern is because they're suppressing all that beautiful energy that wants to come out and inform them to make better choices.
Yeah. Thank you. I really feel that. Great. Wonderful. Thank you for sharing. We just have about a minute and a half again. So, what I want to do now is give John the opportunity to share his information. John, I'm just going to put some stuff up on the screen and tell them how they can make contact with you, which one is more effective, so that they can at least get the opportunity to engage in some of the stuff that you're doing to help people who are experiencing chronic anxiety and so on.
Yeah, the link at the bottom, releasepanic.com/free. Everyone go there first. There's a free video that I made that goes in depth on how to release your chronic anxiety for good, like forever. And I just give you the brutal truth. And I just want to help people. So that's a free guide, a free video to get you started. Even if you don't suffer with anxiety and it's overwhelm or overthinking, this will help you. You can follow me on Instagram at Memory John G for more videos and tips. But for those interested in really taking this, like you've heard me and you're like, I need this, what he has, and I need to release this for good, releasepanic.com talks about my program Released. And there's two options. You can jump into the group coaching and the modules right away today and get your nervous system regulated, right? Just start right today. Or you can email me and sign up for a call if you want to do like private one-on-one customized coaching with me, where I can guide you through this in a more intimate, like VIP setting. So there's all kinds of options, but start with that first link, releasepanic.com/free, and watch that video.
Yeah. Thank you so much, John Graham. You have been a wonderful, engaging, and an amazing guest. We appreciate you. And I know that this information that we have shared here for the past hour or so will bring a lot of inspiration and enlightenment to people because, as I said before in the opening session, I think it's a worldwide phenomenon that we are dealing with. And we need to find ways and means in which we can truly manage ourselves so much better so that we do not become victims of depression, anxiety, and all overwhelm and the burnout. It's an amazing thing that we have to deal with. So, thank you so much, John, as we're going to end the stream right now for the purpose of saving this for our program live tomorrow, God's willing. Until next time, this is Andy together with my guest saying so long, Godspeed, bye for now. Okay, great. So we have been fed with so much content, so much information and experience from John Graham. And there are some talking points that I'd really like to look at. But before I do that, I will address the comments that I'm seeing. I will begin with Gracie Vincent. And she says, always keep the mind occupied, like humming a song, etc. And we appreciate that comment because sometimes it just helps to hum a song, a hymn, a psalm, or something that you can remember, and it could make a huge difference. And then Maria Scott says she watched a documentary on Netflix and it's entitled Change Your Mind and decided to try micro dosing on psilocybin capsules and it helped me with my anxiety, migraines, insomnia, chronic pains, panic attack, depression, PTSD, post traumatic stress syndrome, and ADHD, which is attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. I haven't had a bad day in months. I'm feeling productive like before. I recommend Dr. Mai Kodri on Instagram. He is a certified mycologist. And then we have another comment from Steve Owen with regards to a location, Cura Spores, on Instagram that sells and distributes all these different drugs that one can use. We are not endorsing any use of any drugs for the purposes of dealing with any level of depression at this point in time. That choice will be entirely up to people who would decide to do so from time to time. That will not be endorsed by us on this program. Stephanie Morales says, I tried prescription meds for my PTSD, tonsillitis, anxiety, and depression, but didn't work for me, which makes it even worse. Then I was recommended to natural solution. I started microdosing on mushroom supplements, and that started working well for me. I've been feeling productive. K Heats on Instagram provided them with guidance. So those are the comments that we have seen so far. Let me just say PTSD, post traumatic stress syndrome, is a condition when someone has been through a very traumatic situation and it leaves them with a certain level of stress that they could not deal with, could not manage, could not process, could not get closure on. And every time they're reminded of it, or they hear a song similar to the song that they would have heard that caused that situation to arrive in the same instant, or see something, whether it's been an accident or they had to go through a flooding situation, an earthquake, anything that took them off a part of feeling safe and secure in their mind and in their emotion, and they felt vulnerable, and that thing comes back, and that song or that sight reminds you, it takes you into a state of panic. The other thing, ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, is when you just can't sit still for any long period of time. You're always hyperactive. Your mind is overburdened, overworked, your emotions are overburdened, overworked, and you're constantly going and going and going and going. And you need to find a place and time that you can settle on. So a lot of therapy, and of course the use of a lot of drugs. So we recommend that you decide what's best for you and seek always professional help with regards to what you do with your bodies. That is your instrument, that is your vessel, that is the temple of God that He has given. You need to take care of it, and whatever works for you in your best interest, that choice is yours. We are not doctors here. We are not certified to tell you what you should do, what you should take. We just share the information and then you have the choice. So if you want to get in touch with John Graham, that information also can be provided free of charge, and he's given us the opportunity to get free access to that original video that can help us to at least address in the initial or incipient stages whatever stress factors that we may be going through with regards to depression, anxiety, burnout, and all the other mental illnesses that we suffer with from time to time, or we are challenged with our family, friends, a loved one. So I just want to share some of the talking points with us as we went through your comments. And the first thing I want to look at is that John spoke about the anger and the rage he felt when his grandfather committed suicide. And he said it didn't do him any good. But as soon as he let it out and he began to speak like he's speaking to his grandfather, and then he said, I love you. He said he felt such a relief of this entire situation, and he realized that he had to let that emotion, that negative emotion, go. He also spoke about the difference between chronic and normal anxiety. And sometimes we get anxious because we are going to meet someone for the first time, we are going to attend an important meeting, or we are having an interview, or we are going to see someone to purchase our first car, our first house. There's a certain level of anxiety that would come with that experience because we're looking forward to something that we have been probably saving up for, anticipating, expecting for a while. and it is now beginning to come into fruition. So you get a little bit of anxiety. And that's good. We can regulate that, we can control that. That's normal. But the chronic anxiety is the one that could suddenly come upon us without any warning and brings us to a place where we are feeling trapped. We begin to feel nervy, we begin to feel out of control, and we lose our sense of purpose as to what we are going to do and how we are going to do it. That is the one that we have to deal with, because if we continue to allow that chronic anxiety to control our movements, to control our thoughts, and of course our emotions, where it is deeply seated in a negative form, then that could do serious harm to us. Now, he says that conventional treatments, this is point number three, treats mostly the mind, but the unresolved emotions in us which are triggered when something happens is the root cause of all our struggles. And he spoke about a time when he was driving over a bridge to go to a restaurant, and this sudden level of anxiety struck him. He felt the fear all in his arm, and he thought he was going to have a heart attack. That is the one thing that we have to find a way to release. And he spoke about a process that has three parts. One, try and regulate that emotion when it arises, so much so that we could control it to a certain extent, not maybe all the way, but from time to time, just by laying still, bringing it to the fore, remembering it, and dealing with it. Because what happens is that it is not the bridge that caused him to feel that anxiety and that panic. It was that emotion that was trapped within him, that negative energy that had not been released, that he had not dealt with, that he had not come to terms with, that he had not allowed to express itself out. That is what was causing the problem. And the bridge was just the trigger to pull that emotion out, and that caused the anxiety attack. Then he talked about unhooking, being able to detach yourself from that negative energy, finding a way to seek release from it by whatever means, forms, or fashion. That is part of his process. And then he spoke about the catalyst integration, and he extended it to forgiveness. And he said, forgiveness is not a matter of who's right and who's wrong. It's a matter of forgiving our judgment of what happened in the process or the event. So it's about being selfless, but also looking at us internally and forgiving our judgment and removing that judgment from the situation and just seeing it as something that we need to address, not necessarily from a position of right or wrong or strength or weakness, but just forgiving our judgment, which in most cases tends to be negative. He says also that some people find themselves eating junk food and doing things that are habitually bad for them, thinking that they will suppress the negative energy. But that does not work. It just creates the situation that becomes worse, and then we have more work to do to overcome some of the bad habits, and it just suppresses the nervous energy for a while, but it does not help us to deal with the situation practically. Then he said we need to let go and let God, and that's the biggest one for me. Let go and let God. In other words, remember the theme that we have for this year? What does the theme say? Let God do more for all of 2024. It's the same thing that John is saying. Let go and let God. We want to do all the things that we need to do all by ourselves. We want to be the strong man. We want to be the strong woman. We want to be the one that is getting the kudos and the attention and our names lit up in lights. Hey, it's not about that. It's about allowing God to take control, giving Him the authority and the opportunity to lead, and then we follow. Whatever He sees we do, He will find a way to reward us. We can't do everything, we can't do it all. No man is an island. We need to let go of some of the stuff and let God. He spoke about the vagus nerve or the vagus nervous system. And a study shows that that constitutes three-quarter of the nerve tissue in our parasympathetic nervous system. That's the one that totally shuts down and does not do anything, but allows the vagus nerve to take control. And it controls most of the emotions that we feel in our bodies. Example, it regulates the beat of our heart rate. It regulates taste, speech, the sensations we feel in our skins and in our muscles, and our immune response, respiratory rate, blood pressure, mucus and saliva production, digestion, frequency of urination. All of that is controlled by the vagus nerve. So if the vagus nerve is properly regulated within our system, within our body, then the rest of our bodily functions becomes much more manageable. It is the center of all our emotions, our feelings, our tastes, the things that help us to understand what is happening with our body. It is mostly regulated by the vagus nerve. You can look it up on Google or on Bing or whatever search engine that you use. But it is the part of the parasympathetic nervous system. That is the one that keeps everything simple, does not get flared up, does not get overworked, but manages to just shut down and relax and helps regulate all the involuntary functions of the human body. And it is important to understand that because it sends these signals to the brain and it gives the organs the opportunity now to respond based on the signal that is being sent to the brain. Wow. So we have had so much information, so much experience, so much knowledge being shared by John Graham. And as I said before, his information is available and you can contact him. I'm sure that you would probably like the opportunity to reach out to him and get a response, whether it's you, a family, friend, or a loved one. Anyone can reach out and get in contact with John with regards to the information that he shares. So let go and let God. That's what I remember the most. And it reminds me of First Peter 5 and 7, which says, casting all your care upon him, for he cares for you. So now I want to look at the thought of the week as we are coming to the end of this particular broadcast. The thought for the week says the essence of all life drives the wise to a place of fulfillment, but the pride of the foolish to their untimely demise. Let me repeat that. The essence of all life drives the wise to a place of fulfillment, but the pride of the foolish to their untimely demise. I will not elaborate on the thought of the week. You can draw your own conclusions from it. It is just my responsibility to share. And most of the times, I share for the purpose of giving people the opportunity to do some introspection. Search yourself, like I do, because that thought, it has to resonate with me first before I can share it. And all the thoughts that I share, I think on them. And I think about the purpose, I think about the intent, I think about the message, the inspiration, everything that comes with it, because it is important for us to at so many times just take time out and look at our hearts, just search ourselves and see if we can understand truly what is happening with us. Can we explain our thoughts? Can we explain our desires? Can we explain our expressions and the things that we do? Why do we do the things that we do? We have the ability, we have the authority, we have the opportunity to question ourselves and to see whether what we do align with what God desires for us to do as His people. And that's quite important. But we also need to know what God requires for us to do. And in order for that to happen, we need to have a relationship with Him. And so, for many of you who may or may not know God, I invite you to find the opportunity to make a personal commitment and find yourself in a relationship with God. We can help you with that as well. Just reach out to us and let us know how we can help you in this community, how we can help you with not just dealing with depression and anxiety, but your spiritual life as well, so that holistically we can find an opportunity to work together, support each other, and we can continue to build and grow as a community in these times. So, we just have about a couple minutes to go, and I just want to inform you that on the 7th of May, 2024, which is Tuesday coming, God's willing, we will have the return of David Essel. This will be his probably, I think, his third or fourth time on Breaking Out of Depression. He's one of the first guests that we had in season one, and in the middle of season two, he's made a commitment to return. He has 16 bestsellers. He has had 30 years of dealing with depression and anxiety, tried to commit suicide, was an alcoholic, and now he's found himself in a place of total recovery and is helping so many people around the world, people in sports, people in public figure places. He's just doing a lot of good stuff, and we're going to bring him back here on the program live on the 7th of May 2024. We begin at 6:30 Eastern Standard Time, which is also Atlantic Standard Time, PM. He'll be here around 7 p.m., and we'll have him for about an hour. So tell your friends, tell your families, tell your colleagues, whoever you need to reach out to, that we're going to have David Essel coming in, a 16-time bestseller, life coach, marriage counselor, and a minister. He's going to be here live with us, and we're going to deal with the different aspects of challenges that family have to go through with regards to anxiety, depression, disorder, and how we can find ways and means and solutions. There's so many different ways, as I said before, in which we can find solutions, but it is important to find the one that suits you, that rightfully works for you. And that happens only when you seek professional help. We are not the professionals here. We are not doctors, we are not psychologists or psychiatrists. I'm a certified life and development coach, but that has its limitations. But the experts that we bring on here, we will give you the information that you can make contact with them and let them know you need their help, you need their support, you need their commitment in making something happen with regards to knowledge and information and even treatment. We have made that available for you in this community, on the LBW network, in this program, Breaking Out of Depression. So, as we close, I just want to say from my heart, thank you so much for all your comments and your continued commitment and support to the program. Please remember, in all that you do everything so that we can continue together with God's help to break out of depression. We love you. God bless. Until next Tuesday, God's willing. Bye for now. Take care.
There ain't got no way I'm gonna make it without my Lord. No, ain't got no way I'm gonna make it without my Lord. No, ain't got no way I'm gonna make it without my Lord. No, ain't got no way I'm gonna make it without my Lord. Trouble in my way, but daily hear me say, ain't got no way, ain't got no way, ain't got no way, ain't got no way. The harvest is plenty, Lord, but the workers are so few. Ain't got no way I'm gonna make it without my Lord, no. Men are dying, Lord, there's just so much work to do. There